Greetings. My name is Martin, and I am here with Jason Reynolds. He is the owner of JinkSpot 3D Printing here in Mountain View, California. And we'll be learning about what Jason does here. And if you haven't seen 3D printing in action, you'll get to see it today. So, Jason, thank you for hosting me today. I first want to congratulate you on being in business for 10 years. Tell us, what were some of the experiences you had that served as a foundation for starting this business?
Sure. Thank you very much. So I first got exposed to 3D printing back in around 2003, 2004, in high school. So it was a lot of fun. It was a design class, and the design class, at the end of the project, our teacher had friends with someone who had a 3D printer, and back in the day, the friend must have had one that must have been worth at least 500,000. Very old technology, right? Brand new at the time before the initial price drop and the patents got loose. But then fast forwarding to college, I got exposed to the technology again. It was a lot of fun. I had a project that let me use the 3D printer to print out a prototype for something that I was making. And then I saw it as a magic technology, being able to take something digital and then bring it into the real world. There's a bit of magic there. So we were really excited to be able to use that printer to prototype for our college project. Then fast forward, I had 3D printing as a hobby. I had a few in my garage. Then I took those two, listed them on some service bureaus, and was able to take on some orders. So that's how JinkSpot first got started. And then with that one, I was able to earn enough to buy a second printer, with those two to buy four, with those four to buy eight, et cetera, et cetera. And now I have a whole print farm. And we have the JinkSpot 3D shop as well. So that's how we got started.
Wonderful. Very glad to hear that. So what is 3D printing? Give us an overview of it.
Sure. So 3D printing is actually a bit of a misnomer. It is actually more of an umbrella term for additive manufacturing. So additive manufacturing is just the opposite of subtractive manufacturing. Subtractive being like filling, cutting, holes being removed. You're taking away material from your part. Versus additive manufacturing, you're actually stacking layer upon layer of a 3D print or of a part. You're stacking these slices in order to create your 3D object. So much like slices of a piece of paper, when you stack enough of them, then you have a cube. So this is the very same with 3D printing.
So what are some end products that you can make with additive that you can't make with the other types of manufacturing?
Yeah, so with subtractive manufacturing, it would be very difficult to say print if you were to take a giant metal cube and you wanted to, for whatever reason, create a tube inside there that wiggled in a bunch of different strange ways. It would be very difficult to do that with subtractive manufacturing because you would need to drill, take things out, move things around, maybe cut it up in slices and then bolt it together, adding a lot of weight and complexity to the process. If you are to do that in additive manufacturing, you're just printing one layer at a time, allowing you to just easily create these complex inner geometries just by designing them in and hitting print.
Wow, so there's a lot of things you can do with additive that seem very difficult to do with subtractive or other types.
Absolutely. Subtractive is a very old industry. And 3D printing, additive manufacturing is relatively new. And the things that we're able to do with these new technologies are allowing us to make geometries, parts, objects that have never before been possible with traditional manufacturing. There are things that are called print-in-place parts, where you're actually creating, say, like a chain link that is already enclosed with each other. So traditional manufacturing, you would need to bend that in place and create those chain links manually. If you print them in place and put them as they are together, well, there's no assembly or disassembly. They're perfect parts.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are the various services you provide here at JinkSpot?
Sure. So the various services that we provide are kind of generalized 3D printing as a service. So that includes not only picking in parts from customers, but it also includes doing some light design services. So customers will generally come in with an STL file and submit it to our website. we'll do an analysis on the part. They'll pay for the part, and then in 40 to 72 hours, we'll deliver it to them. If you need design work done, we also do that as well. Yeah, generally our customers will come in with parts on it.
These Fortune 100 companies such as GE, Caterpillar, Tesla, and Boeing are doing a lot of their own 3D printing. But for a small or medium-sized business, how can they properly evaluate the pros and cons of doing the 3D printing in-house?
Sure. So, a lot of those larger companies will have a lot of dedicated resource for those fabrication labs. A lot of them containing additive or 3D printing tech. What's great is that that's true to the kind of rapid prototyping nature of it. But for small and medium-sized businesses that maybe don't necessarily have access to that technology or fab labs or see it as a greater expense, bringing it internally for your own prototyping projects can be problematic because it is often a more complicated tool to use, a solution to use that people realize. I'd be the first one to encourage anybody to pick up 3D printing as a hobby and to do it as a business, but a lot of businesses, especially the smaller ones, don't necessarily have the people power in order to dedicate to that. If you are thinking about bringing on 3D printing for your small business, you're going to need someone who's absolutely dedicated to that machine. And not just like on a part-time thing. 3D printing can be very fun and rewarding, but it can also be very frustrating. So if something's breaking down, so you can't get a filament to work right, or you got a clog nozzle, your bed's not level, any one of these common problems, and you run into them, you're going to have to troubleshoot that. Whereas if you and you're gonna if you've never had experience with 3D printing before, or this is like a new technology that you're trying to learn, the learning curve isn't unapproachable, but it is there. So we have already conquered that learning curve. We have a slew of machines, so if one breaks down and you're on a tight deadline, we don't necessarily have to wait until that printer is back up. We can print on one of our many other machines. So if time, people, resource is a concern, 3D printing might not necessarily be the best pathway. Bringing it internally might not be the best pathway for small to medium-sized businesses. Maybe on the medium side, maybe a little bit more, because you can perhaps maybe dedicate a personalized resource or create a very small fab lab. It really doesn't need a lot of footprint. It's just kind of a small little area that you need to dedicate towards 3D printing. But make no mistake, this isn't just a 2D color inkjet printer, which still a lot of people have trouble with. This is something that you really kind of need your time and attention at. So if you are looking into doing something specialized, so let's say if you're interested in like a very specialized material, a lot of 3D printer service bureaus like mine might not necessarily even have that as a technology, so you might need to bring that in-house. So just that also comes with that caveat. And even the large companies, so we've being located here in the Bay, have printed for Tesla and Google and TI and a lot of the companies that have made their name here in the Bay Area. What's really interesting about that is they have their own fab labs, but it's such an impacted resource that they often will reach out and use services like ours because we offer very quick turnaround times. In fact, JinkSpot has always kind of offered quicker turnaround times than the industry average. So our turnaround times are around 48 to 72 hours, which is actually quite shorter than the industry average. So if you look at companies like Shapeways, which is no longer in business, or you look at some of these other service bureaus, it's usually about a 2-week minimum lead time for a lot of the parts to be returned.
Wow. Yeah.
And it can be a bit of a black box too. One of the other things that we offer here at JinkSpot is a lot of communication and customer service. If you have a part that has specific requirements or needs to be strong in certain orientations, it's good to reach out before you start printing that and get a complaint from the customer. We like to reduce waste by printing things correctly the first time. So if we can get something printed correctly in the proper orientation, you're going to have a better experience, you're going to have a shorter lead time, and you're going to be able to finish that project early and ahead of schedule.
Yeah, ahead of schedule is key, and getting it done right the first time is even better.
Exactly.
Yeah. You had mentioned me earlier that you even have a program where you can make use of some of the scrap material, if you will. Can you
Sure.
tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. A partner and I started a nonprofit called PrintCycle. So, printcycle.org is a website and a nonprofit that's dedicated to the collection and reuse of 3D printed scrap material. We don't see it as waste, we see it as scrap that can be collected and reused very easily. Uh, the genesis of this project came from my understanding of the recycling process. Um, if you think about a water bottle, you think, oh, great, a water bottle. It's very easy to recycle. There's no problem with that. Well, there's a few problems that need to be overcome when creating or recycling this water bottle. You have the body of it being PETG, you have the top being LDPE or some other dissimilar material that you have wrapper that goes around it. You have labeling, you have adhesive, and it's filled with water that might be contaminated with something. So you have biohazards. There's a lot of problems with recycling things as it currently stands. With 3D printing, it's clean, it's separated, it's even separated by color. We can take that material very easily, which is near virgin material, and with a cycle of like 5 or 6 melt cycles, you can use that material quite a bit. Using it near virgin material once for support material and then throwing it away, it's just bananas. Mm-hmm. Being able to then reclaim that material, chop it up with our partner, Peninsula Precious Plastics, located just off the peninsula, which is a branch of Precious Plastics, which is a global recycling effort specifically for plastic. We're concentrating that effort just to 3D printing plastic because collecting that material and then shredding it and then using it as injection molding fodder simplifies an incredible amount of issues, keeps plastic out of landfills, and helps create a sustainable closed loop system in the 3D printing community.
Wow, that's very impactful.
Thank you.
What was the most rewarding project that you've done?
Sure. So, early on in my career, I think one of the more rewarding things was I had a father reach out for his daughter. She was around 3 and she wanted to ride her tricycle, but she was missing the lower portion of her arm. Mm. So the dad reached out to me, had put some ideas together about how to make a way for her to control the steering wheel of her tricycle. So I worked with him and we came up with a cute design. We 3D printed it and sent it off, and he was very kind in sharing some pictures of his daughter riding the tricycle with this 3D printed prosthetic. Mm-hmm. And it was very rewarding. It really sent home the message of 3D printing isn't just like a way to make money, or it's not necessarily a quick, rich, quick scheme or transformative technology to flip manufacturing on its head, but it can really help people. It can really help people with very unique, individualized situations that can be improved upon by the community. And if you look on Thingiverse or printables for prosthetics, you'll see an unbelievable amount of people and community coming together to try to help solve problems for people.
Yeah, and it's so good to see that enhancing someone's life in those ways. So back to the differences in this versus more traditional types of manufacturing. Sure. Do you think that a prosthetic like that would be extremely hard to make in other types of manufacturing?
Not extremely, but the costs are high. Traditional manufacturing is tuned for mass production. And that's a good thing because it generally drives the cost per part of generalized parts down quite a bit. That's why things are usually bucketed in small, medium, large, because then they can make 10,000 of the large, 10,000 of the medium, and 10,000 of the small. But when it comes to truly individual and unique sizes, mass manufacturing can't necessarily accomplish that. So you have large companies who recognize and even are embracing this. So you have companies like Nike, large companies investing in 3D printing because they realize something as custom and unique as a shoe should fit the individual. and not necessarily the slew of sizes. I'm a, you know, a 9.5 or a 10 or a size 13. Why don't we just make this person's shoe for them? Which is now approachable as a legitimate manufacturing approach.
Yeah, that's right.
Or even glasses.
Glasses as well.
They're very unique. They're your specific face, shape, etc. And being able to maybe have a 3D model of your head scanned here, and then add the lenses, add everything, then you have a truly unique pair of glasses that don't fatigue, they don't wear, they fit perfectly.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to seeing your process. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, what you'll see today is a project I'm doing for the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce. So we are printing for them these little cup holders that just happen to fit the IKEA plastic plants that you can get, Vegka, I think it's what it's called. But they're the cute little plastic plants that you can put on your desk, and then being able to customize them with a custom logo for the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce was a great idea. So you'll see a plate of about 10 of those being printed at once. So what this filament is actually a dichromatic filament. So it's a co-extrusion. So you have green extruding parallel to gold coming out of the extruder. What's really neat about that is if you look at the part from the front, you'll see it being green, and then if you turn it around, it'll be gold. The reason why that happens is as the material is coming out from the extruder, because the material is coming out at the same time, based on the direction the filament is coming out of the nozzle, or the way the nozzle is laying down the material, it'll either be green dominant or gold dominant, changing the color. So if you have like a circle, then, you know, if going from left to right, it'll be a little bit more green, and then going from right to left, it'll be a little bit more gold. So you have a really cool kind of two-tone effect.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why you see going on here. That's why it kind of looks a little bit both green and gold at the same time. If we were to rotate that, and I'll show you on the other side there, you'll see it kind of shift magically from green to gold.
I'll see it even more.
Exactly. This is a finished version of the thing you saw printing earlier. You can see the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce logo embossed on the front of it. And what's really neat is this dichromatic angle. So if I turn it, you can see it changing from green to gold. And that silk kind of gives it a really cool sheen. So this will be given out at the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce holiday party as a little giveaway. And this is just a really cheap, very fun Vegka IKEA mini desktop plant. Fits just perfectly just in there. So 3D printing can add a lot of fun customization and decorative touch to your everyday life, whereas before you just have, which is still neat and cute, but being able to give it a little bit more of a personality really makes it your own.
Jason, thank you so much for hosting me today. If there's anyone watching this who wants to learn more about having something 3D printed, what's the best way to learn about that or to get in touch with you?
Sure. There are a ton of resources online for getting into the hobby of 3D printing and learning about it. It's a fascinating technology. If you want to use our services in particular, you can go to jinxbot.com. We have an auto quote on our website. You upload your STL file, it'll give you an instant price quote, tell you exactly how much it'll cost to print. For small to medium-sized orders and parts, our turnaround time is around 40 to 72 hours. But if you are just looking to get into the printing hobby yourself, we have an FAQ page on kind of the how-tos, ins and outs, common terminology that you can learn a little bit more on the basics of 3D printing. And that's located at jinxbot.com/FAQs.
Excellent. So a lot of opportunities there for anyone to learn about 3D printing or even have something professionally printed.
That's right.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it myself.